Bunnyman.
And I'm Crazy Susie.
And we are in the Eyes of Terror.
And we're still working on the Dead Guys from America's Past.
We're starting our end of the month thing.
Catch up, I guess.
Yes, yeah, which is becoming a normal.
Not the condiment, but trying to finish up.
Which hopefully we'll finally get rid of that. Doing this and...
Be on schedule. That would be great.
That would be fantastic. So, before we begin, what are we drinking?
I'm having a tall glass of cool, refreshing H2O.
Straight from the water jug. Where do we get our water from, I guess?
Just filtered water.
Just filtered water? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mostly from the Wally world.
I hate Walmart, so...
Or wherever's cheapest.
Yep.
And I am having a Lion Kugel's Canoe Peddler, so I'm going to try it out for the first time.
It's just a new Lion Kugels.
It's a Kolsch-style beer, so it's a pretty light, summery type beer. It's good for this hot year. Doesn't have a bad aftertaste either.
Yeah, we are ready for the fall over this hot weather.
Yeah, it's been
craziness
up. It's been up
outside.
to nearly 100 and every day for the past month and a half.
Yeah, over the hot weather. Don't know about you guys, but it doesn't agree with me very much. So, and the movie we're doing for this episode is Abraham Lincoln versus Zombies.
2012.
And we found this film on our favorite Tubi-TV, right?
Yes.
Okay. It is an action, comedy, horror film. It is rated R, 1 hour and 36 minutes long. And IMDb, if my tongue will work, gives it a whopping 3.1 out of 10. So you know it has to be fantastic.
This is a quality piece of film.
This is a kudos filmography film.
One of the most historically accurate films ever produced.
Right. I mean, the historic inaccuracies in this film.
No, accuracies. Accurate.
Oh, the accuracies. I apologize. If that's what you want to call it.
It is completely 100% historically accurate in every possible way.
Okay. Sure. The director is Richard Schenkman. The writer is Carl T. Hirsch, I believe. And J. Lauren Proctor. And also Richard Schenkman. All three of those guys are individuals actually assisted in the writing process. And the cast is quite extensive, so we will hit the highlights and move on. The budget for this film is
$150. The way you have it written, it looks like $150.
It's $150,000.
Or it's $1.50. It's the price of a Coke and a half.
It's $150,000. So Bill Oberst Jr. plays Abraham Lincoln. Kent Englehart plays Thomas Lincoln. Rihanna Van Hilton plays Nancy Lincoln.
Brendan Harper
plays young Abe Lincoln. Josh Sinyard plays Aide. Deborah Crittenden plays Mary Todd Lincoln. Bernie Ask plays Edward Stanton.
And then Burning Question.
Chris Holzek plays Mayor John McGill. Richard Schenkman is actually in the film. He plays Dr. Malinoff. Jim E. Chandler plays Eckert. Corey Sewell plays the Union soldier. Jason Vale plays John Wilkinson. John Wilkes. Is it John Wilkes?
John Wilkerson.
Okay. Jason Hewley plays Wilson Brown. And
Many
there is a
more.
huge list left that I didn't mention, so you can find the complete list at imdb.com. The storyline for this film is Abe labors over the Gettysburg Address, the importance of which he is fully aware. He learns that a menace from his past has returned, threatening to tear the already fractured nation to pieces. He must journey behind enemy lines to face a foe far more fearsome than the Confederate Army, the Walking Dead.
Dun dun dun.
Yes. When our forefathers fight the zombies.
They need to make more of these. It needs to be a series.
Yes.
George Washington versus zombies.
George Washington versus aliens. George Washington versus Sharknado.
Oh, God.
Whoa! Our forefathers versus Sharknado. I want to see that shit. I want to see that. That is the epitome of films.
Yep.
Our forefathers versus Sharknado.
Or The Meg.
No, I do not like the title of that film at all.
No, me neither, but...
What I see in my head when they say The Meg is Meg off of
Family Guy?
Family Guy.
Yeah, me too.
A giant her.
Yeah.
A giant her.
Yeah, I agree. I'm like
her, an episode of her on My 600-Pound Life is what I see in my head.
I was actually thinking her as like, you know...
A morbidly obese Meg is what I picture in my head.
Oh, my image of that is a Meg shark. You know, like Meg from Family Guy as a shark. And then Peter Griffin coming on going, "Shut up, Meg."
Why did they make a show of you? You're so stupid, Meg.
Yes. So, let's get back into this.
Okay, then. Just so you know, we enjoy goofery, and we're not trying to make fun of anyone that has weight problems. We ourselves are kind of
So,
cookie,
let's begin. So, this is an Asylum production picture, so it's top tier quality. It is quality to the next level.
Right. Extreme
quality.
They take it to the next level.
There's a story there we might want to discuss in the Terror Talk.
So this movie begins with people running through the woods, and they're running for their life. And they have to use a scythe to cut off the heads of the zombies that are chasing them.
So I don't know if anybody's actually used a scythe or even what a scythe is. It's this weird... It's a...
Crescent moon-shaped blade.
Yeah, and it's sharp, but it's made for slashing wheat. And you're supposed to keep it really sharp, but it's stuck to a pole. And really how it works is through centrifugal force.
Yeah, you kind of have to do this kind of rowing motion with your body.
Yeah.
Kind of have to move your hips from side to side and swing this thing, so it's not just like jab, jab. It's... You really kind of have to be lined up with what you're going for.
Mm-hmm. And
it's not meant for moving targets.
And the metal itself is usually not strong metal, not enough to cut through things. You know, it's meant to cut through grass, not through bone and flesh. So it's sort of awkward to use if you don't know what you're doing. So using this as the primary weapon sort of got to me when there's so many other options out there. But let's...
Okay, so after returning home, they turned into zombies themselves. It was left to a young Abe to decapitate his parents to rid them of their dreadful disease.
Well, the father tried to. He was like out there splitting rails. He was doing something, and then he heard a gunshot. His dad shot himself in the head, and then his mother was there. She was like chained up onto the bed, being all zombified, and then there was a scythe right next to the bed, which for some reason that makes logical sense.
Right.
And so it was up to him to cut off.
So he decapitates her and then breaks the handle of the scythe, which I guess is supposed to be symbolic in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which then you find out later on in the movie, I guess he keeps that scythe, but he ends up fashioning it in a way to where it's collapsible, and then when he needs it, he kind of just flings it out and it kind of expands. It's interesting.
It's sort of like a switchblade.
Yeah, but scythe and
It's a
massive.
switch scythe.
He pulls it out of his overcoat and he kind of flings it out and it expands, and then he just goes around whacking off zombies' heads like he's out in the field.
Yeah.
Harvesting wheat for the season.
Harvesting zombie heads.
It's pretty interesting because traditionally a scythe is only sharpened on one side of the blade, which is the inner side, closest to you. The outer side is dull. There's no edge on it.
That's because it has to, the way that it works. It has to have basically that's the backbone of the blade.
Right.
That's where a lot of the weight is on the blade to make it do what it needs to do.
Right. Okay, so next is current day, and Honest Abe
Current day as in like 1860.
Right. Not today, but current day in the time period of the film.
1860.
Correct.
1861.
And Honest Abe is the current president, so therefore that gives you context of what we mean by current day. And they ask him to speak at Gettysburg, and his wife is not very happy about this. And she feels he is putting himself in harm's way for no good reason. His way refers to him and his wife, the way they interact is kind of strange. So she refers to him as father. That's the title she says when she talks to him. She refers to him as father, which is, like I said, a bit strange.
Well, Mary Tyler Lincoln was not known for her stability.
He tells her he is in no danger, and the battle was significant. 50,000 men died, and he feels it was a turning point in the war. He tells his wife, "Do not worry. She will have him underfoot for many a years." And Abe is notified that 30 men who were sent out, only one of them came back. And he talks of walking dead men. It's crazy talk. Abe goes out with... I have a name written here and I can't even... He goes out with his Secret Service men to talk with the survivor and another guy, and I'm trying to figure out who the heck that is. What does that say? I don't know. Anyway, someone came and notified him of what had happened, and he goes to talk to the survivor. The doctor says the man is losing his ability to talk, and they had to restrain him. Captain Eckerd, he says, they killed everyone. They're dead. So many of them from everywhere. They bit us, and they ate our flesh. They could not be killed, but they tore us to pieces. Abe says he has seen this before, and asked Eckerd to gather 12 men to go to Pulaski. Fort Pulaski, yes. So they can capture the fort and find out how far this sickness has spread. Eckert asked who would lead such a mission, and the sick captain got free. He managed to get free of his restraints. The soldiers had to shoot him, but to no avail, because, zombies and guns, that doesn't really work.
You have to shoot them in the head.
The secretary doesn't agree that Mr. Lincoln should lead the mission, but agrees that he alone has the knowledge that is needed to defend against the walking dead men. Abe and his men take the train to their destination and stop before the tracks end.
You skipped over a point where he fought the zombie with a sword, and then he became Abraham Lincoln with the scythe thing. And
why did I not write that part down?
Yeah, he flew himself in the air and released the scythe from its mechanism and chopped off the guy's head in one single foul, and he was Super Abe.
Now that's how you do it, boys. You gotta whack their heads off.
Yep.
Their heads are where the sickness lies. Whack it off. You gotta shoot them in the head.
Yep.
Aim for the head.
Then we get on to the whole train thing.
Yeah, then they take the train. But they end up stopping before the destination because they had disabled the tracks, didn't they?
They said they disabled the tracks. I think that it was just more of like they didn't want to... I mean, trains are noisy. They didn't want to bring attention to...
the fact that they were coming?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I mean, this was supposed to be taking place in Savannah, Georgia. So
some of the men were divided, but nonetheless, they all still followed Abe. During this entire mission, a lot of the men were talking as if, they didn't agree with what Abe was doing or whatever, but they all still stayed with him. They get to the fort and ready their weapons. The gate is secured, but with them all, they manage to push the gate open. Once inside, they are met with gunfire. They return the gunfire, then realize the dead men are coming in through the gate. One of Abe's Secret Service men are infected, and he shoots him in the head and orders his men to close the gates.
So you want to talk about the greatness of the gunfire and the blood in this movie? Like how great it is, how realistic it really is, and
yeah, it's like almost basically the same as being at a reenactment event.
Yeah, but with CGI. They CGI'd the gun, the gunpowder, and the blood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I liked about this scene was that 5 seconds after the dude gets infected and he starts to turn, Abe didn't hesitate. He just shot him right between the eyes and basically was just like, well, there goes another one.
The other one bites dust. Dum, dum, dum.
And all of his other men were like, holy crap, man, there goes Johnson. Well, oh well.
Big Johnson's down.
Well, crap, if we get bit, he's just going to take us down too. Why are you shooting our men? We need all of our men. And he's like, don't you realize he's infected now? He's not any good. He's going to eat us. We got to kill him. Duh. So he orders his men to close the gate and to shoot the zombies in the head. Abe goes through the battle, lopping off heads. He gathers his men and makes sure no one has been bitten. Only one was shot in the shoulder, and he gives orders, and they all go on their way and do as they are told. Abe goes deeper into the fort, looking for the soldiers there, They find General Jackson, and he refuses to surrender.
Oh, General Jackson. So, this is not General Jackson. The guy doesn't look like him. He's a young guy with a nice, good old fake beard. And at this fort...
And he's missing an arm.
Well, Jackson actually did miss an arm, but he also picked up on his way to that battlefield. He stopped by the visitor center to grab himself a nice Confederate hat with the Confederate symbol on it, like the flag, the Confederate flag. Yeah, it looked really bad because no general would have done that. So
That's the part that bothered you.
this whole thing is just.
So one of his soldiers fires at the president. So one of the Secret Service men decides he walks over to him and just starts beating the crap out of him. Abe tells the general that he needs him and his men to assist him in the security of the fort against the intrusion. And then he tells his Secret Service man to stand down, calm yourself.
Calm your tits.
You know, just settle down. It'll be all right. Needless to say, the Secret Service man is not very happy that he can't just beat the snot out of this dude because he wasn't very happy that he disrespected the president.
Yeah. Nobody touch my president.
Needless to say, the Secret Service man took his job of guarding the president very seriously. The general says he will not work with the president. So the Secret Service man, to secure the fort, they have to secure the fort by themselves. He talks to his men. He gathers them all together and talks to them in a different room. One of them refers to the Walking Dead as zombies. One of them suggests that they go to the telegraph office and send out a message for help to get others to come. Abe tells his men to reserve gunfire as it will awaken the zombies and more will come, bringing disease and death with them. Two of the men go to the telegraph office and see that the telegraph machine is broken.
So they actually have to leave the comfort of the fort to go into town to use the telephone, the telegraph office, which would not have happened in real life, but that's beside the point. And
why would they not have a telegraph machine at the fort?
They would have. That's what I'm saying. They would never have to leave the fort for half of this crap. Because it's a fort. A fort is a living city, basically.
But the thing is, General Jackson...
At worst case scenario, Jackson, and I'm just saying, at worst case scenario, he would have disabled the fort's telegraph machine.
But it was hidden, and he wouldn't tell them where it was.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
But the thing is they still had to go into town. I mean, they would have uncovered. I'm just saying, in real life, instead of going out and putting your men at risk, you would try to find it in the fort before.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
They could have stopped by the visitor center.
So the telegraph machine is broken. Pike pushes into the room and proceeds to try and repair it, but there is a zombie inside there, and he is attacked. The others run and seek shelter in a home. Once inside, they are shot at. They search the home and find the residents in the basement. To find out,
there are two hussies.
It was Abe's long-lost love, Mary Owens. Mary smacks the president, and he says one of his men need medical attention because her aim was too good.
With a shotgun.
She says, bring him down, and she will see to it. Abe had courted her many years prior. They had even talked of marriage, but he had wrote her a letter and released her from the engagement. Her daughter asked if Abe was her father, and her mother said no. She would not have kept her parentage from her. Teddy Roosevelt was there, a young Teddy.
From New York.
He gave Abe gave him a big stick.
And told him to walk softly.
Yeah.
And carry a big stick.
And they made a plan to distract the zombies at the front entrance so the others could get away at the back exit. They made their way back to the fort. One of the girls were attacked as they got to the gate, and the guy manning the gate had to shoot her.
And then, wasn't it, Teddy got a little upset about it?
Yeah.
Because it was like this young, like, girl about his age, and he was sort of infatuated with her.
Mm-hmm. Mary talks to Abe about a plan while he cleans the blood from his blade. The men talk about Abe and how unprepared they had been for this mission. Mr. Wilkins is very unhappy with Mr. President being in the company of working ladies. It's a very
hussies.
It's a very unseemly word that he uses that I'm not going to reiterate. The general is also unhappy to be in the company of a working woman. The general still thinks these men are just sick and they have no right to kill them. The president tells the general that he has to face this before there is no cure. These people are already dead. All you can do is decapitate the affected. This disease spreads fast. Noise attracts them. Beheading them is far safer. He asks the general if he has any blades or weapons. The general and he says if he did, he would not tell him because he is his enemy. A Union soldier offers to help Abe because he says this affects them all.
A Union? You mean a Confederate?
This is a Confederate, yeah. Sorry. This is a people problem, not a soldier problem. It should unite us. So they head out and collect implements from a local plantation in order to make weapons.
Again, they had to leave the fort. A fort that would have been supplied with bayonets and swords and just everywhere. And they did this whole montage of them going through the fort and stuff like that. I mean, the fort was completely ready for visitors to just come in.
I don't know. I'm not saying it makes sense. It's a movie.
A bad one.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's why we're doing this.
Yep.
So in order to make the weapons, they had to remain quiet so as not to draw the attention of the zombies. Thankfully, the zombies were all sleeping. Aww.
Yeah, the movie where zombies sleep.
This one's special. The zombies sleep standing up. The group enters a barn and they walk through and a rooster crows. And that wakes the zombies. Dadgummit roosters, being all efficient and all.
Mm-hmm.
Mary attacks a zombie. And during this zombie, blood gets on her face and in her mouth and in her eyes. Mary is in bed and Abe reminisces about their past and tells her he loved her and he still loves her. She does not want her daughter to know that, and she forgives him for the past. Abe again goes to the general and asks for his help. They decide to clear the town of the zombies, but just going through the town and killing them one by one. Mr. Wilkins does not agree with this mission, so Abe tells him to stay back and stay with Mary and make sure she is taken care of. They take a moment of silence to remember their fallen comrades. The death scenes are hilarious. When a head is cut off and it bounces off a building, Teddy is just a young guy in a quiet... I'm sorry, I went from one to another without enough pause. My bad. Anyway, like I said, the death scenes are pretty hilarious because they go through this town and it's like Mission Impossible like mission.
Yeah.
And they'll whack off a head and it's like it's a bouncy ball because it'll bounce off a tree and it just like boink.
Yeah, and
they
then,
bounced off buildings.
And then it shows like each of the guys with their different weapons, and there's like a guy with he has like a scythe. One guy has like one has an axe. One guy got stuck with a garden hoe. That was my favorite one because he was sort of like he was pumping himself up. He's like, I'm gonna do this, and he pulls it up and he's like, crap, garden hoe.
And Teddy's just a little kid, so he can't really do anything but like knock a zombie to the ground and then repeatedly whack it in the head.
Yeah.
So he's like hitting him in the back of the knee, get down on the ground, and then whack, 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 hitting him in the head. Mm-hmm. But, you gotta do what you gotta do.
You gotta do what you gotta do, I mean.
But the ones where they whack their head off and it, like, bounces off hard surfaces.
Just random things.
It's just like, beep, beep. That was funny.
Yeah.
Because it was like...
I don't think that's how...
I think they used too much latex when they made those heads.
That, I still like the garden hoe guy. just crap.
Okay. So Teddy is just a young guy and quite small. So he compensates, like I said, by knocking zombies down at the knees and then smashing their heads in. Wilkins has a hard time that Abe's lost love is a harlot. He goes to view the zombie soldier who is locked away, and he happens to recognize the man.
I don't know if he actually recognizes him or just sort of like...
He mentions a soldier by name that he thinks he is, and I don't know if he legitimately recognizes the man or if he just sympathizes with him, so he happens to think that he's someone else.
Because you can sort of see like the progression of him sort of going a little bit more crazy or a little bit more drunk, because he keeps drinking from a flask and he starts spewing out like hatred towards Lincoln and all this other stuff.
He goes into the cell and tells him he's a secret agent for the Confederacy and that the president is fooled.
And he reveals his name, and the plot thickens. It is John Wilkes Booth. Dun dun dun.
Yeah, like you don't see that one coming.
Yeah.
And he calls this soldier Ainsley. So Ainsley puts his hand out to Wilkes. So Wilkes sets him free. And he attacks him.
Because Ainsley was just trying to give him a hug. He was saying, thank you so much. But then he was still hungry, so he just wanted a bit of a nibble of an ear. He was just like...
So John Wilkes Booth has no choice but to shoot Ainsley. And this troubles him. Yeah, it really does affect him. So, he's just really freaked out by the fact that...
He had to kill another Confederate.
He had to shoot one of his fellow comrades. Mm-hmm. So one of the Secret Service men fights with the Confederate soldier. This is out where they're fighting the zombies. The Confederate soldier that said he would help their president is fighting with one of the Secret Service men who volunteered. The Confederate soldier that volunteered is fighting with one of the Secret Service men. This has been like a kind of a tiff that's been going on throughout the entire film.
Yeah. And it was a stupid tiff, too.
And the group continued to gun down zombies. This 6-shooter holds an infinite amount of bullets. You're sitting there going, okay, there's 1 bullet, there's 2, there's 6, there's 12, there's 30.
I think you actually turned to me and you asked me, how many bullets does a revolver carry? I said, like, at that time, about 6, yeah, so.
I'm like, that's a revolver. Don't they only have 6 bullets? And you're like, not in this movie. Not in this movie. And then finally they run out of bullets and then they're freaking out. And you're like, it's about time. So, until the writer wants to add a scene of danger, 2 of the Secret Service men check out a building. One goes into the loft area and the other gets overrun by zombies. He runs out of bullets and dies. Some are in a gravel pit field.
Well, and the one in the building...
I'm not done yet. Teddy is on Abe's shoulders and in someone's garden overlooking a wall and shooting down zombies.
With a musket. A single-shot musket that has infinite amount of bullets coming out of it.
So the Secret Service man who is in the loft decides to jump off of the roof.
The infinitely long.
In the loft, which is going to be quite high because it's like an attic in a building. So he jumps, breaks his ankles. And here comes the zombies after him. So he decides, all is lost. I'll shoot myself in the head. I guess it's a good thing his revolver had one more bullet left.
Was it 1 or 100, Bunk? You tell me.
Only Abe, Teddy, one of the Secret Service men, and Sophia, which is Mary's daughter, return from the mission. At least they killed a few zombies on the way. My paper's sticking together. Okay. John Wilkes Booth goes up to Abe to kill him, but he is praying and he wants his soul to be damned to hell, so he waits.
In other words, John Wilkes Booth chickens the crap out.
Abe talks to the Confederate soldier. He asks him how he came to fight on the wrong side of history.
I hate this state. This is the one thing that really irritated me in the entire movie, because that's such a modern way of thinking that just really drives me nuts. No one knows what is going to go down in history.
So that statement irks you.
That statement very much irks me.
Mm-hmm. So he says he came from Alabama, and his family were soldiers, and they fought. And he said after the war, he wants to move out west and become a cowboy. Mary encourages Abe to speak again with the general, and she says he is experienced, and he may have an idea. The Confederate soldier talks to the general and tells him that if this illness spreads, there will be no Confederacy to protect. The general showed the president the hidden room of black powder and tells him the fort has a hidden tunnel system.
Okay, so it was a cleverly hidden room of black powder. It was behind some barrels. Seriously.
Yeah. They connect a wick to the black powder and open the gate so that the zombies can come in. Everyone goes to the hidden passage, and the general plays the bugle to draw the attraction.
It's a good thing
of the zombies.
It was a good thing that Stonewall Jackson was known for playing reveille like a recording.
Oh, he could jam. The president makes sure they are all inside, and he lights the fuse. Some of the zombies enter the powder room to feast on the bodies there, and the fuse was stepped on and extinguished. The general says most of those men were Confederate soldiers. It's altogether proper that it should be he that lights the fuse. The president lights him a torch, and he goes through the crowd of zombies and lights the fuse.
He sort of doesn't really go through the crowd. He just sort of he sort of like carry through the crowd through like a mosh pit way. And he just sort of stands there with it and then gets killed by the zombies. Then
he pushes his way through, and yeah. It was strange how they did it. It was like he was there moving through the crowd. It's almost like they circumposed all the zombies in around him. It was strange how...
They were better off than having him crowd surf on the zombies.
It was strange how they did it. So the survivors made it out through the hidden passage, and Abe and the last few remaining Secret Service men exit. John Wilkes Booth is very unhappy that Abe let the general die. Mary says now that it's time for her to say goodbye. Her daughter says they make medicine advances all the time. She says not today and not in time for me. Lincoln gives his speech at Gettysburg. Abe visits Mary to take her to the cure. To take her to find a cure, I'm sorry. Yeah. He took her to a doctor and paid him to find a cure. After a year and a half, he says, he is now no closer to finding a cure than he was before.
But so he baits her anyway.
Well, the doctor, he had her tied up with clamps and chains. Abe unclamps her to clean her wounds. He tells the doctor, this level of care is unacceptable. The doctor says, no one wants to go near it. Abe tells her that Mr. Wilkins tried.
So he starts bathing. He starts bathing.
He starts washing her wounds and telling her, just updating her on what's going on with him. Trying to have conversation with her as if she were really her, even though she's really deep
into being a zombie.
Into her zombie.
I mean, she just let the zombie, just come out.
So he's saying to her, Mr. Wilkins' true identity is John Wilkes Booth, and he has intent to kill me, but don't worry. He is protected, well protected. Or is it I? Hold on. But don't worry. Okay, he is protected. She gets visibly upset, and she grabs his arm and actually draws blood. The doctor offers to clean.
Yeah, she grips down on him and draws blood.
Clean and bandaged it for him. He asks if the doctor has a fast horse and ink and paper, and sends the doctor with a message to John Wilkes Booth. John is delighted by the message. The movie ends with Abe and Mary Lincoln getting ready to go out to an event, and she wants to make a good impression.
Yep, they're going to go to the theater that night and see Our American Cousin.
So the movie ends with the president waiting outside for his wife to get ready because she's taking forever.
Well, it's Mary Todd Lincoln for you. So what's your score on this?
I give it a 3.
3? I give it about 2.5 out of 5.
I only give it that because I thought it was pretty hilarious.
I mean, there were really some funny bits about it. This movie is funny watching it the first time around, but the second time around, there's not much there. And if you have any sort of interest in the Civil War, this is not the movie for you.
Right. So yeah, I'm not a big history buff, so I found it to be pretty hilarious.
So some of the more funny thing is that it has some really cringy accents. Like Stonewall Jackson had a very cringy Southern accent.
Yeah, it was pretty awful.
And then the bad costumes, they're all the simplicity costumes patterns. The fake Civil War patterns, and the fake beard, like I said, with the hat. And the first location was Fort Sumter. And then the second location, I think, was actually another fort. But one of my favorite parts of this movie is when Stonewall Jackson is walking to meet Lincoln. And you can see, they don't show it, but you can see that he's going up a disability ramp. And if you have headphones on, because when I first saw this is when Netflix was years and years. It was a few years ago when Netflix lost all the good movies, and then so they had to put bad movies on there.
Yeah, I think at least 1 or 2 times every year Netflix goes through some kind of transition, and yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And so this is how I saw it. And if you listen to it with headphones on, you could actually hear cars in the background of the movie. And like I said, they're all they didn't go out of their way to make these forts not look like visitor forts. Mm-hmm. They're very much like they shot him like after, like they had connections, but not good connections. So they're like, just you have like 2 hours after closing to shoot. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of CGI, and this, like I said, the shooting and the blood is all CGI. Washington D.C.'s CGI. Where he falls down the warehouse, that was CGI'd. So it was all.
Some of the trivia is pretty funny.
Okay, let's get with the trivia.
I'll let you read it.
All right. An avid history buff, actor Bill Oberst Jr. agreed to take the role of Lincoln, provided he could deliver the Gettysburg's address. Much of his excitement, he was able to do so, which he did almost from memory, having played Lincoln multiple times on stage. Bill Oberst Jr. Abraham Lincoln plays 2 different zombies in the 2011 TV series Dead Valley, 2011. Teddy Roosevelt was 2 years old at the beginning of the Civil War, far too young to walk softly and carry a big stick. The Colt Navy revolver used by the characters Hopkins, Chamberlain, and Pike in Abraham Lincoln vs. Zombies were all the same gun, which is owned by Nathaniel Gerlman Hopkins and bought for the Grindhouse film he wrote.
They had to take turns.
They had to take turns with
it's
the
my
same.
turn,
It's my gun now, guys. Pat Garrett was a lawman in the Old West who became famous for killing Billy the Kid. I think that's the one from the Alabama guy. Pat Garrett would have been 11 years old at the beginning of the Civil War and only 15 at its conclusion. Even though construction of the fort was originally given to Major General Babcock, the job was then passed to Second Lieutenant Robert E. Lee. So I'm thinking they're talking about the fort in Savannah. This fort was also used in the film Robert Redford's movie The Conspirator. The film was released May 29th, 2012 to capitalize on Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter 2012, which was released in the U.S. on April 22nd, 2012. So this is a mockubuster, which is, at the time a big release comes out, you'll see these. I know there's several, like I remember when Brave came out, there was one release, like a CGI thing released by another company. It was called Braver. You know, like you'll see these ones, and they're usually really, really horrible.
Yeah.
But they're sort of worth watching because they're just that bad. So, anything else you want to?
No. What kind of historical inaccuracies were you going to point out?
All of it. Everything was pretty much...
The entire film?
Yeah, I mean, there was really no... I mean... I really... Like I said, the costuming was really bad. The beard was really bad.
Yeah, the beards look pretty fake.
The accent was horrible. The one thing that, out of all this entire movie, was that statement of, you know, you're on the wrong side of history. And that statement always bothers me, even to this day. And because it's like we never know what history is going to say. It's easy to look back on history with 2020 vision. But at the time, both sides thought they were doing the right thing. I wanted to say that Stonewall Jackson was a Union soldier before the Civil War. He was a teacher at West Point in artillery. He would not have hated Lincoln. There would have just been like, oh, in this situation, if it was real, he would have been sort of, I think he would have been more of like, I'll work with you, but under these conditions. Because, you know, like all the generals, all the higher ups on both sides at one point knew each other.
Yeah.
And Stonewall Jackson was shot by his own men. Little historical fact.
Really?
Yep. He was riding behind his own lines at night. It was foggy out. And the picket asked who goes there. He didn't answer. They just heard the horse and they shot him. He was shot by his own men. and he was considered. Till to this day, he's considered one of the greater generals, and he actually, brought artillery to where it is. He came up with a lot of the artillery theories. Horrible teacher, from what I understand, but a good general and a very good man. I mean, I'm not taking sides. It's just they say that his character was well-rounded. So I feel like that was sort of a discredit to his character in this movie.
Made him seem like a jerk.
Yeah. I think, without using historical figures, I think they could have simply have just, unnamed Union soldier number 1, And the other thing that sort of bothered me was the whole FDR thing. Putting FDR into it just really did, especially in Savannah. But, like I said, he was 2 at the time, so, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So this is the first time you've ever watched it. I've watched it a few times before watching it.
I thought it was pretty funny.
You thought it was funny? Is it worth watching?
I think it's worth watching. Just because it's funny.
Yeah.
Was it scary? Would I consider it to be a horror film? Very loosely, maybe, just because it has zombies in it.
Okay, so my recommendation is that you sit around with a bunch of your friends, maybe have a few drinks, have a movie night, sort of doing like your own MSTK3 thing, and watch the movie. I think that's the best way to do it. But I think you need to do it. I think everybody needs to watch it the first time. You can't watch it and then sort of like go into it. Because, like I said, if you watch it the second time, it becomes unbearable. Mm-hmm.
It ends up being very drawn out. What we typically do is we watch a film one time, and then the second time we take notes on it. So a lot of films that are just so drawn out and long and kind of dry, the second time when we're taking the notes, we're like, oh my God, when does it end?
And sometimes we'll end up just looking at our phones and
a lot of times we're just like, nope, we're not going to do it. Nope, we're going to find something else. Never mind. We change our mind.
Yeah. But
so that's what happens sometimes when we decide to do something else.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that is all.
Yeah. So to chill out our stuff, we do have a Redbubble for merch. You can check us out on that. We do have a Patreon. You can support us there. You can contact us on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Anything else?
No, I think that's all.
All right. So
we'll scare you later.
Bye.